Mr. Speaker, the resolution has 26 original co-sponsors, and this resolution is one that we have presented for many years. And as I am grateful to the many who have signed on to this resolution, I have to mention Senator Sherrod Brown, because he has presented a resolution on the Senate side to acknowledge June as Pride Month. And he has done so because of the circumstance that was called to our attention by Mr. Polis. The White House has not issued a resolution breaking with an 8-year tradition. This is something that is expected. It is something that has occurred, and people tend to look to the top for the tone and tenor of our behavior to be demonstrated. And I regret that we did not get the resolution from the White House. My prayer is that at some point the White House will have a change of heart, a change of mind, and will present a resolution. But be that as it may, tonight we are proud to present this resolution, and it's important that I present it as an ally of the LGBTQ community. I am an ally of the community for good reason. For good reason, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I know what discrimination smells like. I know what it talks like. I know what it walks like. I know what it looks like. I have been the victim of invidious discrimination. I lived in the South. I'm a son of the South. And the rights that were accorded me under the Constitution of the United States of America, Mr. Speaker, were denied by my fellow citizens of the South. I lived in the South, Mr. Speaker, born in Louisiana, lived in the South at a time when I had to drink from colored water fountains. And I must tell you, a good many of them were not the kinds of fountains that you'd want to drink from. They were filthy, to be quite frank with you. I lived in the South at a time when I had to sit in the back of the bus. There could be many seats available in the front of the bus, but I had to make my way to the back to claim my seat. I lived in the South at a time when I had to sit in the balcony of the movie. Didn't matter that there were seats in the lower level. I was always shown the balcony. At a time when I had to receive my food from the back door, couldn't go into many restaurants. And if I did have a restaurant that I could go in, it was some room in the back that was set aside for coloreds only. Colored water fountains, colored restrooms, back of the bus, balcony of the movie. And when we were locked up at that time, it was in the bottom of the jail. I know what invidious discrimination is like, Mr. Speaker, which is why I am here tonight, because I believe that until all of us are free of invidious discrimination, every one of us is at risk of being a victim of invidious discrimination. This resolution is important because it speaks of the many gains that have been made in the LGBTQ community. Barney Frank, the first openly gay member of Congress. Anise Parker, first openly gay mayor of the city of Houston, speaks of Stonewall, speaks of the many accomplishments, speaks of a lot of the tears that have been shed. But tonight, I want to really focus on the very end of the resolution rather than go through all of the whereases. I want to go to the be it resolved. Resolved that the House of Representatives recognizes that lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer LGBTQ rights are human rights, and are protected by the Constitution of the United States of America. Recognizes that all Americans should be treated fairly and equally, regardless of sexual orientation or gender identity. This is important, Mr. Speaker, because in this country today, in the United States of America, today, we still have people who are being discriminated against because of who they are. In the United States of America, there are still people who have rights that are accorded them under the Constitution, very similar to my circumstance, not the same, but very similar. Very similar, not the same to my circumstances, wherein the rights that were accorded under the Constitution were denied by my fellow Americans. And people today are having rights denied by their fellow Americans. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Cicilline, David Cicilline, Representative Cicilline, has a bill, H.R. 2282, the Equality Rights Act, the Equality Act. This bill has 195 co-sponsors. This bill would address the inequalities that we see in America. Examples are always good. In this country, the Supreme Court has made marriage equality the law of the land. One would think that if it is the law of the land, that all persons who are married would be treated the same as all other persons who are married. All persons who happen to be of the LGBTQ community would be treated like I would be treated if I were married, as a person who is not a member of the community but an ally. But that's not the case, Mr. Speaker. In the United States of America, if you are married and you are of the LGBTQ community and you wear your ring to work the next day and proudly announce that you're married, you can be fired. You can be fired for engaging in an act that is constitutional in the United States of America. Why? Because we have about 31 states that have not clearly defined the fact that all persons are to be treated equally, endowed by their Creator with these certain inalienable rights, among them life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. All persons. This would include people who are of the LGBTQ community. But unfortunately, in a good many states, they can be fired for just showing up to work and announcing that they are of the LGBTQ community. Mr. Speaker, no one should be denied the right to work because of who the person happens to be, when it is a lawful status that you occupy. Marriage is lawful in this country. People ought not be punished for being married. People ought not be punished for their sexual orientation in this country. In this country, you could be denied service, certain services, because of your sexual orientation. One would think that we were long past the time when people would judge you and draw conclusions about who you are and what you represent simply because of your sexual orientation. Sexual orientation is not a limitation on a person's dignity, on a person's humanity. Sexual orientation does not divest a person of citizenship, does not divest a person of rights accorded under the Constitution. Sexual orientation is but a means by which a person was born into this world. I believe that my God doesn't make any junk. I believe that my God created people purposefully and created them as they are to be who they are in a world where all persons should be treated equally. Created equally by God, treated fairly and equally by humanity. So since I believe this, and I've had these experiences, it is appropriate that I stand here on the floor of the House of Representatives to say to the world that we, as a great nation, should not allow ourselves to continue to deny human rights and human dignity to people because of their status, a status that they were born with, a status that the Supreme Court recognizes, a status that is to be protected under the Constitution of the United States of America. I am proud to stand here and take up the challenge and the cause. I am a person who believes that until we have paid the debts to others for the work that they have done to accord us our freedom, we still have a job to do. There is still great work to be done. I didn't get here because of my work alone. I didn't get here because I am the person who ought to have this position. There were people who sacrificed and made it possible for me to have this opportunity. There were people who surrendered their lives so that I would have the opportunity to stand here tonight. So I owe a debt, and I'm standing here tonight to continue to repay the debt I owe to others who made it possible for me to have the rights and enjoy the rights, to be more specifically, enjoy the rights that I enjoy in this country. And I want others to enjoy these rights as well. This is not to say that all of the discrimination against African Americans is over and the world is a perfect place. It is not. But it is perfect enough for me to come to the floor of the House of Representatives and stand for justice for others, just as persons have stood for justice for me. So I thank you for the time, Mr. Speaker. It has been time well spent, in my opinion. I am honored that this resolution has been presented. I am honored that it has co-sponsors, 26, and my prayer is that one day the House of Representatives will pass this resolution. My prayer is that one day Mr. Brown's resolution will pass in the Senate. And my prayer is that one day this president will issue a proclamation, if you will, a resolution of a sort, recognizing June as Pride Month, LGBTQ Pride Month. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back the balance of my time.